like to call this October 21st, 2021 Strongsville Board of Education regular meeting to order. Mr. Anagnastu, would you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Salee?
Here.
Mr. Kropinski?
Here.
Mr. Micko?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
We are all present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain the same: student academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And for tonight, I'm going to stretch the definition of academic achievement and growth, but I do want to give a shout out to Natalie Kostalnik and Dean Upholzer, who were named Greater Cleveland Conference Athletes of the Month. Natalie was an overall individual medalist for the GCC as a sophomore. For the month of September, she averaged a 40 for 9 holes and 78 for 18 holes, while finishing first and second in this month's GCC tournaments. And Dean has been the Mustangs' #1 golfer this year and is averaging 75.47 for the year. He shot 73 in the last GCC Invitational tournament to finish second. He finished second in every GCC tournament this year, and last year broke a 22-year-old freshman scoring record by 1.5 shots. And to get your golf average, you not only have to play good golf, but you have to know math. So that's our academic achievement highlight for the month. Public comment. So far, I have one public comment, and that is Bonnie Tennis. Bonnie, you know the drill. Name and address, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
The only one, so maybe you can give me an extra minute. Okay, so I'm here because I was listening to Mr. Owen and to that last meeting that you had about the science of reading on letters, and then also I read about the PBIS and all the other software that you have there that you're going to, that are using. So I know that you're all compassionate like everybody else, and I am too, about when it comes to education. We all want our kids to succeed. But the thing is that there are so many things already that you're introducing. You have universal design for learning, Google Chromebooks and Google application. But before I get there, I've been working in IT for over 30 years. And I know what it is when you get thrown all this software that you have to learn. I've learned many computer languages, and I slept every other night in order to keep up with the technology. Technology is very fast paced, and it's going really quick, and it's it's hard to keep up when you're older, but you're young, you can absorb a lot more. In addition to that, I can say that English, everybody's saying here, English is very hard, and it's a science of reading, and we have to learn how brain operates in people in order to learn the language. Well, I came to this country when I was 21. I didn't know a word of English, and I learned the language very quickly, and it's not a very hard language. I had other languages where I lived in the previous country, and even learn a language that had different alphabet than this regular alphabet. And I was able to pick it up, and I spoke multiple languages as good as I spoke my native language. So when I came here, someone says, oh yeah, it's hard, it's a science. It's not science. Children learn the language very quick. I've learned from 5-year-old when I came here. I was just asking around, what is this, what is this? And I've learned. I never went to school for the language. I never went anywhere. And I was able to, in a half a year, go on interview and get a job. And then I was able to go to school in a year and a half to ITT and get my computer degree, whatever at that time that was. So I don't believe that it's such a big science that Mr. Owens presented, we have to, it's 85% children that are succeeding in reading in Strongsville. Why is it that it has to be spent additional money on this a kind of training, and it requires teachers to go through the training. You know, whoever decides, I understand, but this is money and this is very time consuming, you know, for teachers, for kids to learn, and for everybody else. And is it really needed? Is it really needed? And I thought that we have very good teachers, because I hear it's premier teachers. Teachers get educated, they're getting these educational extra classes that they're getting, you know, the educational courses that they're getting more money based on that. We have teachers that make $100,000 and over $100,000, and we are told that they're not educated enough to teach how to read. Now, that is something wrong there, because I've learned how to read. Now, comprehension is another thing. Comprehension is something that I've noticed in my 2 kids when they went to school. Comprehension is something that a person has to think about something. It's like, why do we have all these pictures in a class? Dog, we're showing first a picture of the dog, then it's a dog. We should show the word dog, then a picture, and let the person imagine it. My kids had a problem with comprehension when they finished 3rd grade, and I had to sit with them. It has nothing to do with science of reading. It has to do, let the children just read. And let the children do that. Now, I have another thing, that positive behavioral interventions, that's another thing that I'm gonna talk maybe another time, because I'm running out of time. To me, it's very surprising that we have so many teachers, and yet we're hiring another 36 new teachers this year. 36 new teachers. I understand that comes from ESSER fund, most of them. But what happens when that expires in 2024? We're going to be told it's like the coaches, the literacy coaches. First they were financed some other way. Now we can't get away with literacy coaches, so now it comes from general fund. And now we have 4, now we have 5. So now the same thing comes with this. We're hiring all these people with ESSER funds. So what happens after in 2024? We're going to say, well, we put so much in, we invested so much time, we invested so much in our kids. So now we just have to put them on general fund. So now it comes a levy, and we have to pass another levy because we can't back off. And it's been always like that. I'm not saying only in this area, but once the business or once someone goes to that point, it won't back off, because that's too much. Oh, we invested too much, we learned too much. What are we going to do with these people? We're going to let them go? We can't let them go. So this is, I didn't touch on everything. And, and there's one thing, I know you very good on these quotes and sayings. I see them a lot, but there's 4 ways to spend the money. You can spend your own money. When you do that, then you really watch what you're doing and you try to get the most for your money. But when you spend somebody else's money, I'm not talking about you, but when someone spends somebody else's money, it's less careful with the money. I understand you're trying to be prudent. But prudent, it doesn't mean at any cost we have to spend at any cost to educate our kids. Our kids are fine, 85. Some of them don't like to read. Some of them don't like to read books like that, like Mr. Owen shown. I never liked to read books like that. I was a good reader, but I never liked to read a lot. And it's like we're trying to force the kids to read. As long as they know how to read, most of them will go into a technical area, engineering area. In that area, you don't have to know all this writing poetry or writing stories. All you have to know is how to read and apply the formulas and all that. So this is my comment about all these, and PBS. PBS is something that I'm really against. Children are not some kind of like a thing that you can give them a treat and they can pick up a trash. I've seen the video in Philadelphia. They showed how a 16-year-old gets out of the bathroom, picks up the trash. In my country and where I came from, I picked up the trash when was there and put it in the trash can. I didn't have to be rewarded with sugar cube or something or a point to get to pick up that. Or a child because it doesn't speak up or doesn't say something. That is wrong, because then the child will learn that you only get that when you get a treat. Then it goes to a company and it's going to say, well, I'm not getting anything out of it and I'm not going to do anything. that is the wrong way. The PBIS is the wrong thing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate your comments, and
And I am very compassionate too.
I,
And I am for education, but I am for education, and I have more,
thank you, Bonnie.
to
I,
share.
I appreciate it, and as we talked about, our goals are academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And sometimes those work really easily together, and sometimes they're challenged, but we'll continue to balance it. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none. Next is recognition. Dr. Ryba, do we have any recognition tonight?
No recognitions tonight.
Approval of minutes. We have the September 2nd, September 16th, and September 23rd Board of Education meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any discussion? Our minutes are always available on our website if you ever need to review what we've done at previous meetings. Hearing no other discussion, George, take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Solis.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Next on our agenda is Treasurer's Report. Mr. Anagnostou.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. For your evening tonight, I have, or for your consideration this evening, I have several items under the Treasurer's Report. Item A is the financial month-end report for September 30th, 2021. I also have the supplemental report, which I can go over briefly as well. So you should have a copy at your seats. It is also available on the website under the Treasurer's website, or Treasurer's page, and monthly financial reports. Just in high summary, compared to in September, or the last board meeting, I presented a budget forecast, which looked at our overall budget and how it's forecasted at. It's spent at 100%. This is kind of trending it out so far based on the activity this year. And then next month, we have the 5-year forecast, which will be updated and presented again and submitted to OD as part of the fall submission. So currently, revenues are trending about $19,000 over what was presented last month. Expenditures are trending $976,000 under overall, which would impact favorable $995,000 to the cash balance. The cash balance is about $11 million higher compared to last September, which was a result of the carryover for last fiscal year. And in comparison, if things trend out, we would end at the fiscal year June 2022 with a cash balance of $59.3 million compared to last June of $53.1, which is a 6.2 increase. Month-to-month revenues compared to last September. Revenues for the month of September were $967,000, which were $14.7 million less than last September. The reason they're lower compared to last September is due to the timing of the distribution of local property taxes and TIF payments, which are in other revenue. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic during calendar year 2020, the August 2020 property taxes were delayed until September. They're usually collected in July and August, so last year everything was pushed back a month. So it was just more of a timing issue. And then for state revenues are lower compared to last month, and it's because of the change in the funding formula, where the students that are going to charter schools and non-public vouchers, they're being paid directly rather than the dollars flowing through us and then being deducted from us. So that's going to impact revenues and expenditures as well. And the net impact of that is about $600,000. So year to date, this September to last September, overall revenues are about $592,000 higher. It's made up of the local property taxes, which are about $500,000 higher than last year, which is more to do with collection percentage. And state revenues are down $338,000, which is again due to the change in the funding formula with the charter schools, the scholarships, and the open enrollments outflow into the other districts directly. And then other revenues are up compared to September of last year, this September, which is primarily due to kindergarten tuition payments that we had, where last year we billed them on a month-to-month basis based on number of in-person days, versus this year we went back to our normal collection cycle of twice a year. At the beginning of the school year, you can make one payment, or you can split the payment at the beginning of the school year and the other one at the end of the calendar year. So how it's trending out for the rest of the year, revenues are trending about $19,000 higher, or 0.0023%. And then, as mentioned, I'll present the 5-year forecast again next month. And the bigger change there, I just want to take another look at the state funding formula. We were supposed to get data from the state, which was they're going to release it in October, but it's been delayed until December. So how they're paying us is based on last year's numbers. So it's just going to be our modeled, for the forecast, it's going to be our modeled projections versus something concrete from ODE. Expenditures, month-to-month comparison from last September to this September, we're about $11,000 higher compared to last September, but it's twofold. Salaries and benefits are about $368,000 higher, and other expenses are about $338,000 lower. And again, with the other expenses, they're lower because of timing of expenditures related to the property taxes. When we receive our property taxes, we also have to take out the county auditor fees, and those are typically at the settlement date, which is August, but because it was delayed a month, last year was September, so that's why the increase, or the decrease in other expenses for this year. Month to date, or year to date, this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year, expenses are about $894,000 higher. It's primarily due to the increases in salaries and benefits, and other and purchase services, you'll notice, are less, and it's because the deductions for the charter schools, community schools, and open enrollment out students. And then, as I mentioned earlier, in comparison to the forecast for the rest of the year, trending it out, we're about $976,000 lower, or 1.28% compared to the budget forecast. And then, again, I'll have a new forecast next month. So, any questions?
No.
Okay.
I know I speak for the board. We're excited for the 5-year forecast report.
Thanks. I'm glad someone's excited. All right, so moving on with agenda, let me disconnect the monitor. Okay, so item B is a new fund for fiscal year '22, which is a student-managed student activity account for a high school National English Honor Society. And this will allow the kids to join the society, student activity group for the National English Honor Society. So now we'll give all of our subjects a student activity group to participate in the various National Honor Societies. Item C is their student activities program budget, purpose, and goals. Their estimated budget that they're estimating this year to bring in is about $1,350, which is primarily dues to the national group that will be collected by the students. Item D is revisions to student activity budgets, purpose, and goals. 2 of them are for the middle school for band and orchestra, as they've been conducting a fall fundraiser, which increased the amount of revenue and expenses that they'll be bringing in. And then also at the high school, the STEM club is increasing as well, due to the STEM club wanting, within the STEM club, to start a robotics club to compete in various competitions and other activities that's related to that throughout the area. Item E, fiscal year '22 amended permanent appropriations. Majority of the changes are related to the student activities mentioned above, and then also a couple other changes for auxiliary service. And there was one other change, which I don't have in front of me, but it's written in the exhibit. Item F is the tax advance schedule, which can be found in item Exhibit E, and that is for, this is an annual appropriation which allows us from the county to collect our taxes before the settlement date. The settlement dates are March and August. This will allow us to collect in January, February, and in July. And then item G is the dental insurance, which can be found in Exhibit F, an increase of 3%, and it's also an 18-month renewal. And as well as the vision is an 18-month renewal with no increase. For both of these, we were able to get an 18-month renewal to change really the renewal date from a January 1st renewal to a July 1st, which will align with our medical renewal. And then the next two items require a separate vote. The first one is item I, resolution approving a compensation agreement with Lowe's Home Centers. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that a resolution approving a compensation settlement agreement with Lowe's be approved as described in Exhibit H.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any discussion? George, can you summarize the agreement?
Yeah, so it's a settlement agreement with Lowe's. There was a pending case with the Board of Revisions. They filed a case. We filed a counter complaint. A counter complaint, and ultimately we decided to settle out of court, which is about a $500,000 settlement to the school district.
Say it again.
$500,000.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or any other comments?
No.
Please take the roll.
Yep. Mr. Kropinski, or I'm sorry, Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Salee.
Yes.
and the motion carries.
And the next item is a resolution authorizing and directing the transfer of educational equipment purchased with state auxiliary service funding to St. Joseph and John School. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that a resolution authorizing and directing the transfer of educational equipment purchased with state auxiliary service funding to St. Joseph and John School to continue to be used for the benefit of its students be approved as described in Exhibit I.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any discussion?
And I can give an update on what this is.
Yeah, if you
So-
would, please.
As part of the state budget bill that was adopted July 1, it allowed parochial non-publics to receive their auxiliary funds directly rather than being passed through the public school district. When they were passed through the public school district, anytime they bought equipment, we were responsible for that equipment. We were responsible for it to be on our inventory, and we also received auxiliary funds for the upkeep of it. For example, St. Joseph and John's has 2 modular units that we were required to maintain, but we were also maintaining them with the auxiliary funds. With this change in legislation, St. Joseph and John's opted to receive their auxiliary funds directly. So this will now transfer all the assets that we have on our books for them that were purchased for their benefit through the auxiliary funds to them, and they could also do any required upkeep or needed upkeep to those modular units themselves with the auxiliary funds that they are now receiving directly.
And just for the community's information, just to be clear, the auxiliary funds that we used to be stewards of were always St. Joseph and John funds. They weren't taxes that were from the general fund that we were transferring. We were simply stewards. We were taking care of the checkbook and making sure that the money was accounted for. The same way we had responsibility for the inventory.
Right.
It wasn't our property. This is not giving St. Joseph and John our property. It was their property to begin with. The laws changed in the most recent budget, and this is the consequence of it, where it's no longer our property, so we need to vote to give it back, not give it back to them, but to make them in charge of it. In the same way with the funds that they receive from the state on an annual basis, we no longer have to be stewards for that. The positive from the district's level is it's one less thing that George has to do, so we can find something else for him to do.
And the other clarification point, the auxiliary funds are state funds. The non-publics also receive federal funds, as you'll see, and the next, coming up in the agenda with some federal funds to them. So those, the law changed only for the state auxiliary funds. So the federal funds, we still are responsible for and the stewards of, or the custodians of. So just that clarity that it's only for auxiliary state funds.
State of Ohio. Thank you, George.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion?
No.
Hearing none, take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kapinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Salee.
Yes.
and the motion carries.
And with that, if there's any further questions, that concludes my report.
Any other questions for George? Thank you, George.
Thanks.
Dr. Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Before I have the one item that's specifically on the agenda, I just wanted to give two brief updates. The first update, I sent in one of my parent updates a couple weeks ago. I shared with our parents the changes that have been happening locally around us in terms of quarantine rules. There's the Warren County pilot that's ongoing. A couple weeks ago, Lorain County and Medina County changed their quarantine rules. And I shared that I would communicate with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health of our data and our concerns with the number of healthy students that are having to miss significant amounts of educational time because of quarantine rules. And obviously, we want to be pragmatic and ensure the safety and health of our students and staff. But again, our data is clearly stating that the majority of our students are at home and healthy. They did have the opportunity to respond to me to that communication and appreciate the information we shared, but basically reiterated that they are going to follow the guidance of the Ohio Department of Health, that they feel it's in the best interest of the state if local boards of health follow the rules set by the Ohio Department of Health. And although some other counties have looked at other opportunities, they are not going to change their quarantine guidance until the Ohio Department of Health changes. So I offered to at least even pick one of our buildings to start with a pilot, which they were not interested in, or at least didn't respond of any interest. They felt it was too early to tell with the Lorain and Medina County quarantine rules. And then if you pay attention to the news, there was just an article recently about the Warren County pilot that it's seeing phenomenal results. So the hope is that the Ohio Department of Health will utilize this as they promised to possibly evolve their quarantine guidance, but we'll continue to keep an eye. And if we continue to see the same data that we've seen, then we can continue to have further discussions about quarantine rules here in Strongsville. So just wanted to give a brief update there. The second thing I wanted to update is this is the last meeting prior to the election on November 2nd, and the school district has a renewal levy on the ballot, issue 68. So we've shared information through the Post News. I had a FAQ in there a couple weeks ago. We've been sharing information on social media as well as with our families. So just as a reminder, this is a renewal levy that was originally approved by the voters in 2002. So that means there are no new taxes that will be added. This is just a renewal of the existing tax. So what does that do for our school district and our students? It preserves and provides the opportunities for up-to-date textbooks, technology, resources, and supports and class sizes that have been afforded us the opportunity to reach high levels of success. So one of the things that we've shared recently, because I think it's something to celebrate, is the U.S. News and World Report rank schools, right? They rank high schools. And we ranked number 41. That's up 74 spots in the last 4 years, and that puts us in the top 5% of all high schools in the entire state of Ohio. They've also just put out recently, they've started ranking elementary schools and middle schools. And so those rankings are still being finalized and being put out, but many of our elementary and those 6 schools rank highly as well. So when we talk about what is the value that our taxpayers are getting for the tax dollars that they're providing us, we're we're showing results outside of me sitting here promoting our results. These are outside sources. And then the last thing that it does is it maintains that financial stability. So I just want to talk a brief moment about what we've been able to provide. So if you take a look at the typical levy cycle for a school district, on average in Ohio, they say it's about 3 to 5 years. Every 3 to 5 years, the school district is on the ballot asking for operating funds to support their operations. Let's take a look at Strongsville City Schools. Prior to the May 2019 ballot, the last new money we had was in 2007. So you take a look at Ohio average schools, 3 to 5 years. Strongsville City Schools, 2007. The last time was that we passed new money. Then the next time we passed new money was May of 2019. One of the things we're saying with this levy is, hey, if we continue to have the financial support of our community through these renewal levies, which do not increase taxes, and even with the increase of valuation, it doesn't provide additional funds to the district. We get, based on House Bill 920, a similar level of funds, that we are able to be financially stable through 26-27. So even just with that, and George is going to give his 5-year forecast update here in another update, so we'll see that I said at least because we believe right now that if things stay consistent, we'll be able to go beyond that. So we're looking at 2007 to 2019 to 2027 at least. So we're exceeding by far margins the average. So I understand the concerns that if we continue to spend, then we're going to have to go to the taxpayer sooner. Well, the data that we have in our school district is that's just not true. That we're able to be financially prudent, provide the needs and services and opportunities for our students, have a positive outcome and do that, because what we don't do is we don't say, hey, we've got this money, how are we going to suspend it? What we do is say, we've got this money, how can we be good stewards of that money and invest that back into our students? And then how can we look at cost savings measures? So if you're on social media, we've been putting out there, we put out there financial highlights and we've been putting on social media our cost savings measures. So some of the brief highlights that I'd just like to give so our families are aware is once we passed that levy in May of 2019, we just didn't stop there and say, okay, we're good. We said, how can we save money? And we put in an online purchasing platform that saved our district $7,000 since we put it into place. We utilize a maintenance department that is able to do services in-house instead of contracting it out, which has saved the district over $80,000. We took our self-insured healthcare program and say we've made a lot of savings with that, but let's join a consortium so we could save even further. When you're in a consortium, you have more lives. In a consortium, you're able to get cheaper administrative rates and you're able to have negotiation power. And on an annual basis, that's saving the district $260,000. We were able to have a positive working relationship with our associations, and our associations have agreed to contract extensions for multiple years that have created workforce stability for our district, had a competitive rate to retain and support a quality staff at a fair market value for our staff. George and his team has looked at our investment strategy, and since 2016, they've put into place a new investment strategy, and now on average, we are seeing investment returns in slightly over $700,000 versus $40,000 or slightly less than $40,000 when he started. So when we take a look at what we've done internally, let's give ourselves some benchmarks comparatively to where we're at with area school districts. And so one of the benchmarks is per pupil expenditures. How much money are we spending per pupil? So when you take a look at all of our surrounding school districts that border Strongsville, and those school districts that people like to compare Strongsville to, similar school districts, and you take a look at those 9 school districts, we rank 7th out of 9th. The average is $14,135 per pupil. Strongsville City Schools is $13,096. So again, we are getting a good value for our dollars. And then if you take a look at how are we doing in the county, and you take a look at the tax rate that our school operating levy, so whether it's permanent improvement bond or operating levy, is being taxed against the Strongsville homeowner, and you take a look at all 31 suburbs in Cuyahoga County, Strongsville City Schools ranks 23rd out of 31. 70% of the counties, or 70% of the cities, rank higher than us. So what that means is if you take my house in Strongsville, and I move that same house to Shaker Heights, which has an effective rate that's 3 times the amount of Strongsville, I'm going to pay more taxes on my house in Shaker Heights than I am in Strongsville because of the tax rate that we have there. And I can go on and share some additional updates, but I wanted to share what we've done, the benefit that it's provided, and the fact that we are going to be able to be financially stable for years to come based on the work that we've done. Okay. Any questions or follow-up on that?
I think it was well said. I mean, at the end of the day, as a board, we're willing to earn the taxpayers' trust every day by the hard work that we do. I think the examples you gave, we should be proud of. We talk about value, we talk about integrity. It's bang for the buck. And I think in Strongsville, and I think our school district over the past 10 years has done the things necessary to give the taxpayer and the parents in the community a great bang for the buck. One of the conversations you always have with levies is, should it be a permanent levy? Because it is no fun to have to go to the electorate every time. The flip side, and this is kind of how I look at it, is I'm willing to earn that trust each and every time. We're willing to do the hard work, and we respectfully ask the public for their support so that we can continue the great stories that we've been able to tell. The high school story, we should be proud of that. To move up 74 spots to the top, in the top 5%. That's what we want. That's what we want for our children. That's what the community wants for its students. We should be proud of that, and we should take a little bit of a celebration in that, in a victory lap. But we're also not done.
Right.
We're going to keep on growing and keep on getting better. So I've said enough.
And Mr. Micko, one of the things that I think it's not related to the renewal levy, but I think it's important to state, and I give credit to George and his team for all the work that they've done. In 2022, we're actually going to be able to reduce millage for the bond issue because of the work of his team. So a few years ago, if you remember, we've talked about, we improved our rating with Moody's from AA3 to AA2 to AA2 with a positive outlook. We were able to refinance the $81 million bond issue. And not only is that refinance of the bond going to save the taxpayers over $14 million over the life of the bond, but we are going to reduce the reduce the millage rate on that bond. So starting in 2022, we will reduce that by $0.5 mil. I think, George, you said it's going to go from a 2.8 to a 2.3, which is going to reduce the tax bill for our family. So not only are we asking in November to support continued the renewal of this levy that's not going to increase taxes, but in 2022, because of George's team and their work to refinance, we're actually going to be able to reduce taxes by $0.5 mil based on the bond issue. So congratulations, George, to you and your team for that work. Yeah. So the one item that I have on the agenda for your consideration is the approval of a tuition student. Just as a side note, we do have a board policy that says if a family does not reside in the city of Strongsville, they can attend Strongsville City Schools as if they pay tuition. And that tuition rate is set by the Ohio Department of Education. It's not set by us. So this is a family that has spent their time in Strongsville City Schools, has moved late in high school, and would like their child to finish their high school experience with us. So be it resolved upon my recommendation that Caden Vi be accepted as a tuition student at Strongsville High School for the remainder of this school year. Per board policy, at the rate of tuition set by the state, the annual tuition rate is $13,834.54, and tuition will be paid from October 14th, that's when they have moved out of district, through the end of the school year, representing 139 days for a prorated tuition amount of $10,864.24. And as a side note, if they choose to do this again next year, it's approved on an annual basis. Any questions on my report? All right, so I'll ask Steve Bruckner, our operations manager, to come up with the business service report. Steve?
Good evening, everyone. There's two items for business services this month. The first is the supplemental bonds. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the operations manager of business services be authorized to purchase through the Ohio School Boards Association 3-year position bonds from January 1st, 2021 through January 1st, 2024. The policy number is indicated there for the following positions and the following amounts. The total prepaid cost for the 3-year administrative and supplemental bonds, which includes a 15% discount per year, is $2,283 retroactive to January 1st, 2021, and funding for that is to be from the general fund. The second item are gifts. Mr. John Bourgeois donated an American flag, flagpole, and base valued at $250 to Whitney Elementary School. And Staples in Strongsville facilitated an in-store fundraiser culminating in the donation of 200 school supply kits, which include pencils, glue sticks, dry erase markers, highlighters, and Sharpie pens. The kits, with a total value of $1,000, will be distributed district-wide. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we have the curriculum report with Aaron Green, our Director of Curriculum.
Good evening. Several items for your consideration this evening. The first few are Title I service provider contracts for our non-public schools. And the first one is a service agreement with PSI affiliates in the amount of $2,759.05 for one part-time Title I instructor to work with Holy Family School under Title I federal funding. Item C2 with Exhibit K, I do need to pull from the floor. This was for Incarnate Word to partner with PSI affiliates. They have since decided to go with another service provider, and we will have that on the November agenda for you for your consideration. So again, item C2, if we can pull that from the agenda tonight. Third item is a service agreement again with PSI affiliates. This one for $5,518.11 for part-time Title I instructor with St. Albert the Great. And item 4 is a service agreement with PSI affiliates for $19,313.37 for part-time Title I. And this is in conjunction with St. Joseph and John schools. Again, these are all Title I pass-through dollars that are for our non-public schools. The next few items, we have overnight and out-of-state trips for your consideration. Item 5 is for the varsity hockey team to travel to Sylvania, Ohio, on November 13th through 14th, 2021. This is an overnight trip. Transportation will be via parent vehicles, expenses paid by Strongsville Hockey Parent Association. Item 6 is an overnight trip, again for the varsity hockey team. This one is to participate in the Chiller Thanksgiving Classic Hockey Tournament, November 26th through the 28th. There is a tournament fee of $1,200 paid by the district. Transportation will be via parent vehicles and other expenses by participating students. We have an out-of-state trip for number 7, which is the high school girls varsity basketball team, traveling to West Bend, Wisconsin to participate in a competition December 27th through December 30th of 2021. Transportation will be via chartered motor coach, expenses paid by participating students through fundraising activities. Item 8 is an overnight trip for the Strongsville High School varsity gymnastics team, traveling to Cincinnati, Ohio for Win the Day Invitational, January 28th and 29th of 2022. Transportation via school bus, expenses paid with proceeds from fundraising activities. And the last item for your consideration, student teacher placement. The student is from Baldwin Wallace University, looking to be placed from January 10th through April 29th, 2022, and partnered with one of our high school teachers. Any questions I can answer for you?
Just would like to confirm that all the overnight trips are weekends or not during school time.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up, we have our Director of Student Services, Andy Trujillo, with his report for the month. Andy?
Good evening, members of the board. I have one item for your consideration this evening, and that is for Kids Link School. This is for a contract with Kids Link School for the placement of a student with disabilities for the 21-22 school year at a cost of $75,075, as you can see in Exhibit N. Questions for me? No. All right, thank you.
Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
Next is Jenny with our Human Resource Report. Jenny?
Thank you. Under Human Resources, I have the following items for your consideration this evening. Under E1, the abolishment of a non-certificated staff position. Under E2, resignation for certificated staff. Resignation for non-certificated staff. Under E3, we have the retirement of a non-certificated staff member. Under E4, appointments for non-certificated staff. And under this, under E4, Mr. Miko, I do need to make one change from the floor regarding Karina Messenger. We failed to add in her salary there. So after it says 7.5 hours per day, 215 days per year, her salary should be at step A at $19.80 per hour. Continuing on under E4, appointments for certificated substitutes, appointments for certificated district substitutes, appointments for non-certificated substitutes, appointments for non-certificated district substitutes, appointments for certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointments for non-certificated athletic supplemental contracts, appointment for a home instruction tutor, appointments for certificated supplemental contracts that are prorated. Continuing under E5, changes in hours for non-certificated staff. Under E6, change in status for non-certificated staff. Under E7, continuing contract for non-certificated staff. Under E8, educational upgrades. E9, additional time for certificated staff from the summer, and additional time for certificated staff member under Title III fund. Under E10, medical leaves for certificated staff, medical leaves for non-certificated staff. Under E11, we have an unpaid leave for non-certificated staff. Under E12, we have our volunteer coaches, a volunteer chaperone. And finally, under E13, we do have a resolution for substitute licensure. So be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Education approves a resolution authorizing employment of certain individuals granted temporary substitute licensure in accordance with SB 1 as stated in Exhibit O. And this does require a separate vote, and I'll just explain this really quickly. The state is looking, the governor, believe, is due to sign this soon, that allows us the flexibility to hire substitutes that may not have a bachelor's degree. This is something we did last year in light of the COVID pandemic. They're allowing this again. We do put certain criteria in place, and I do meet with these individuals prior to hiring, and there is a criteria that we follow based on who is hired to be able to help us with our substitute needs for this year.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any further discussion, questions? So I do have SB 1 on my legislative update, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yes, it does allow us to hire employees that don't have a bachelor's degree. We still have background checks. We still have to make sure they're capable of doing the work. But anybody can look at the news to say that hiring staff is a challenge anywhere in Ohio or in the country, and it's a challenge for us too. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility, and we're wise and judicious with our placements. Any other questions? George, take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Silly.
Yes.
and the motion carries.
There are no items under technology, so that concludes my report.
Any questions for Cameron? Next on our discussion, or next on our agenda is board liaison and committee appointments for the remainder of the one-year term for calendar year 2021. That would be Student Achievement, Finance Committee, and Business Advisory Council, John Kropinski. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Are you sure?
Yes.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. I know John will do a great job, but we do want to memorialize this for the record and make sure it's official so that he can get all of his accolades for all of the work he's doing. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Silly.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Do you need a pause?
No.
Next on our
I got it.
agenda is report on Polaris Career Center. I have a feeling we have visual aids.
I do. I have visual
Mrs.
aids.
Bissell.
I'm not going to do that one yet, though. So, a couple of things from Polaris. Last Tuesday, Polaris held its fall advisory dinner and meeting. This is something that's traditional there, but was put on hold last year from the pandemic. So this was my first experience. They invite, it's typically 500, it was a little smaller this year, about 350 to 400 people for a dinner event. The students do all the cooking and serving, a really fantastic event. They also show some presentations about how the students are connecting with the community and the businesses locally. So that was a great experience for me. I did see several of our community members there, so we thank them for their participation and service. And then the purpose of that meeting is the business community members come and they talk about their areas of expertise and kind of brainstorm ideas for what they want to see with Polaris moving forward. So that was fun. And then also actually that same day, October 10th and 11th, Polaris was here at Strongsville at the high school presenting to our sophomores to give them a little more information about what Polaris has to offer. And then moving forward for those sophomores, the visitation days will be November 15th through 17th. And then there's a registration night November 18th from 6 to 7:30 at Polaris. So if you have a sophomore student, make sure you ask them about what they learned about Polaris and take note of those days if you are interested. The third thing is I wanted to highlight Audrey Barno. She is a student ambassador from Strongsville High School. Every program at Polaris has a student ambassador, and she was recently highlighted as the cosmetology ambassador. And I thought this was really interesting. She said that her career goal is to work in a salon specializing in hair, and that she's had this same goal since she was in kindergarten. That is awesome for Audrey, and we're really grateful that we have this opportunity for her available through our community and through Polaris Career Center. So congratulations, Audrey. Thank you for being a student ambassador. And then finally, this part. You want to help me, Cameron? I don't know I haven't opened it. This is, oh, it's big. Okay, well, there you go. There are two of these. This happens to be the middle school one, but we have a middle school and a high school one. These are given in recognition for each school's overall participation and retention in Project Lead the Way. So we've received two of these this year, and we're hoping we can find some place to hang them and display this. But Polaris is currently serving 141 of our high school students and 814 of our middle school students. So this is in recognition of our retention of those students. So congratulations.
That's awesome.
That concludes my report. Thank you, Cameron.
No, but I would be remiss if we didn't take it as an opportunity to remind the community, it's these kinds of, I don't want to say awards, but these kinds of recognition, these are the things we're doing in Strongsville City Schools to educate our students well and to earn your trust and to earn your continued investment in our school district. Next on our agenda, I'm sorry, you are?
I am complete. Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Next on our agenda is report on legislation. Did you want to start, Sherry, or do you want me to start?
You can go ahead. I don't
Okay.
really have anything.
Perfect. I did want to talk about SB 1, which on October 6th was finally passed by the Senate. It had already worked its way through the House and then through conference committee, and it is now on the governor's desk to be signed into law. The highlights are that, one, starting with class of 2026, freshmen next year, as part of our high school program, we will have a semester class on financial literacy. And it's, something that I think a lot of times adults talk about, how do you teach a child or a high school student in this case, how to file a tax return, how to balance a checkbook, how to when and how to invest in their 401k, all of those kinds of concerns. So to graduate from high school in Ohio, you will have to complete a semester in financial literacy. One of the nice parts is it kind of combines some of the work we've already done It eliminates the requirements to try to shoehorn the subject into social studies or some other class. It acknowledges that it's important, and we're going to do a semester of that, which has the policy committee terribly excited because we'll have to convene the policy committee and adjust our graduation requirements. But that was one part of SB 1. The other part of SB 1 is that it did continue the allowance or the ability for school districts to judiciously hire people who may not necessarily have a bachelor's degree to use for different substitute positions throughout the school district. Again, we will still have our standards, we still will have an interview process, we still have a background check, et cetera, but it does give us some flexibility to hire substitutes, and that's important. And then the last part is that I'm gonna challenge our high school to get me the answer. As I understand it, if the governor doesn't sign a bill within 10 business days, it all automatically becomes law. And yesterday was 10 business days for SB 1. So I think it's actually effective as of today, but I don't want to assume that. So maybe the high school can get us an answer on exactly whether it's law or not. John, I want the high school to get us the answer. I know you know the answer, but I'm doing a shout out to the high school and Mr. Tamino and the history and government departments. That concludes my comments about Ohio legislation. Next on our agenda is board liaison reports. Michelle, do you want to start with City Council?
Sure. The most recent city council meeting was this past Monday, October 18th at 8 p.m. in council chambers. Couple of things of note from that meeting. There are a host of other upcoming meetings to be aware of if you're interested. Economic Development Committee meeting is next Monday, October 25th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. Finance Committee meetings Thursday, October 28th at 4 p.m., same place. And then November 16th is the next Chamber of Commerce meeting, and that will feature Brent Painter, the Economic Development Director of the City of Strongsville. So if you're interested about the development and the businesses in Strongsville, that might be something to attend. And that, I hear, is going to be catered by Jay Bella. So take a look for tickets to that if you're interested. Leaf pickup is underway, and word has it the winter's going to be bad, and so hopefully we can get those done before the snow comes. But be on the lookout for more details for when the truck will be in your neighborhood or ward. The rec center is in desperate need of lifeguards, and I can attest to this because my son's swimming league has been canceled because of it. So if you are interested, somebody's interested, please consider applying. We love the rec center. I know it is a great community amenity, but we have to support it with staff. So they, like everyone else, is having a shortage. If you could help out, please contact the rec center. Trick or treat, just officially, will be October 31st, 6 to 8. That is typical. And then the last thing I wanted to share was you may have seen that South Park Mall recently celebrated its 25th anniversary. And as part of that celebration, the mall ownership donated $10,000 toward the new playground that will go in near the rec center. So we want to thank them for their support of our community, and we're really excited to see that project get underway. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Michelle. Next is Strongsville Education Foundation. I will do that report. We did have a meeting last Thursday, and I do want to comment that we need to say thank you to the Education Foundation whenever we get a chance. It's a great group of people who come together to raise funds to do even more for our students in Strongsville. So I don't want to lose a chance to say thank you again. Some of the things that came up at the last meeting, a robot club grant was proffered and it was approved. And so the Education Foundation is going to donate $500 to that program. I'm fully in support of it. If you don't like robots, well, that's your problem. To be announced, but we're going to try to get some excitement going, as we have a football-themed raffle coming up. And there will be a big screen TV as part of that raffle and some other football stuff that you need to watch football games properly. But there'll be a raffle, and we'll have some more information on how you can get those raffle tickets in the future. And then Jockeys and Juleps, which is their annual fundraiser, will be coming back next year, and it's slated for May 7th, 2022. So we thank them for their efforts. Next is Strongsville PTA Council. Sherry?
Yes. PTA Council is having an event that I guess they've had the last 5 years, greet and treat, and tables are set up. And in the past, I think it was at the middle school. I'm not quite sure where it is. I think it might be at the Strongsville Football Stadium.
You're
It
correct.
is? Okay.
Hackettine Stadium.
At the Strongsville Football Stadium this year on October 27th. And tables from different teams or organizations set up, and they pass out candy to kiddos. You guys are all familiar with it. And so this year they're expecting up to 1,000 kids. So they're looking for donations of candy, PTA Council is. So you can contact Kelly Jungerberg, or me. You can contact me and I can get that information to her. Also, reflection contest is approaching. The reflections contest, the purpose of it, there were some people are unsure what that was. The reflections the purpose is to get kids involved in the arts through pictures, drawings, poetry, and writing. And this year's topic is I Will Change the World By. The committee is looking for submission, to have a submission deadline of December the first week in December. You can talk to your school about the information, more information on the reflections contest. So, and I think that's all I have. And also there was the sharing tree. So you can look out for more information on the sharing tree. That's at the elementary schools, or all the schools, where a Christmas tree is set up. We're looking at sponsoring 100 kids this year with, you pick an ornament from a tree and you purchase a gift for a family in need. So I'll be bringing more information to you in our next meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Sherry. Next is OSBA Student Achievement. Mr. Kropinski, it's now official,
But I have no report this evening, Mr. Miko.
and you did it extremely well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board committee reports, Finance Committee. Next meeting is to be announced. Do you have any other updates? Policy Committee, next meeting is to be announced, but we're all excited to talk about updating our graduation requirements and more. Next, Facilities Committee meeting. Sherry, do
I don't have anything on that.
you want to announce the next meeting date?
The next meeting date is November 11th, 2021.
Thank you. And next is Business Advisory Council. John?
I have nothing at this time. We're looking forward to the meeting tomorrow morning, bright and early.
Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. Action by the,
Mr. Miko, before you get to the consent calendar, I do have a correction on one of my items that
excellent. Go ahead.
I misspoke on the Lowe's. So in the Lowe's agreement, the compensation agreement, I said it was $500,000. It's actually a $300,000 swing, so I misspoke on that. So we avoided a refund of $210,000, and we gained a compensation agreement, or compensation payment of $91,000.
Okay.
So total value of it is $300,000, not $500,000.
Thank you for the correction. I appreciate that. Any other corrections? Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar at this point of the agenda means all items in the agenda with asterisks are adopted by one single motion unless requested otherwise. Do I have any otherwise? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. We did have a few edits from the floor. Under the superintendent's report, 9C2, we are pulling the service agreement for Incarnate Word Academy. We also corrected the hourly rate for Karina Messenger to step A, $19.80. And as, that's not on the agenda, so your correction stands, but it's not part of the consent calendar, so I don't need to comment on it. Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Sully.
Yes.
and the motion carries. Dr. Ryba, Superintendent's timely information.
Just as a reminder, as we shared, in a couple Tuesdays from now, it's Election Day, so that's a non-school day for students. Most of our buildings are utilized for elections, so, and we will have some staff here for professional development that weren't able to attend in the summer. So just a reminder, non-school day, and get out and vote. It is that time of year where we're getting to the fall concert, so as you can see, we've got a high school fall concert on Wednesday, October 27th. Show choir showcase on Saturday, October 30th. The marching band postseason performance on Wednesday, November 3rd. And a very cool opportunity, our kids were selected on Friday, November 19th, Electrify Your Symphony concert at Strongsville High School. So as I understand, Dan, correct me, this is an individual that's like a spinoff of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. That they will be here, and a lot of our kids will be kind of the strings for the performance. So tickets are now on sale. You can see brownpapertickets.com, and there's two shows, 6 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. So as a former musician, whenever you get the opportunity as a young person to perform with professional musicians, it truly is a wonderful experience and should be a wonderful evening of music if you choose any of those in the next few weeks. And just thank you, Sherry, for sharing about the greet and treat. Just two other reminders. When you are coming to the greet and treat, we ask that your entry ticket is a non-perishable item that gets donated to the Strongsville Food Bank. So we ask that you consider that as you come. And it looks like the forecast is a little rainy this upcoming week, so it's scheduled to be October 7th or October 27th from 5 to 6:30. However, the rain date is October 28th. The next day on Thursday, same time, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. at Pat Catan Stadium. So with that, that concludes my timely information.
Thank you, Cameron. Next on our agenda is Board of Education Other. First up, we have Board Member Professional Development. Be it resolved that the Strongsville City School Boards of Education grants approval for Michelle Bissell, Sherry Buckner-Salee, and Laura Wolfhausum to attend the Ohio School Boards Association Capital Conference on November 7th through the 9th. Cost to register is $310 per person. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any discussion? Just want to compliment everyone on taking their responsibilities seriously. Capital Conference is a good event to learn almost everything there is about school districts, school boardmanship, and proper planning, whether it's facilities or what have you. I will miss you terribly. I've gone for too many years, for a number of years, not too many years, but someone told me I'm not allowed to go this year. Hearing any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes?
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mrs. Sully.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next, for our Board of Education Other, at our previous retreat, we discussed board-level goals that the board can put their weight to, whether it's the bully pulpit or what have you. And so we have been discussing this for a number of meetings, and I think it's a healthy time for us to bring it to the public and share with the public and get our drawing the line in the sand. So the board-level strategic goals that we've listed, number one is the property tax levy, and we want to earn the taxpayers' trust with successful passage of the renewal levy, and this ties in with our overall district goal of financial prudence. Our second goal is that letters and science of reading, and our goal is to implement the letters training to adopt the science of reading program. We recognize this is a multi-year project, so this is the year 1 of 3 as we expect it to take. But that goal ties in with our overarching goal of academic achievement and growth. Our third goal for the year is food services, and we want to determine the food services program for our district for the next 5 years through the RFP process, and this will tie into our overarching goal of financial prudence. And our fourth goal is our elementary schools, and for this year, we want to complete an enrollment study a community survey, and start collecting and defining capacity data for our district elementary schools. This encompasses all three goals. It encompasses academic achievement and growth, it encompasses financial prudence, and it encompasses community engagement. But these are the goals that we want to set for ourselves and be able to measure ourselves for the year and for years to come. Is there any other discussion or comments? I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Is there any discussion? So the motion is to adopt our board-level goals as presented in the exhibit. Hearing no other
I have a question. Do we
Sure.
need to formally add that to our agenda if we're voting on it?
Richard is just doing that with the motion.
So
I
that,
just-
but then that gets added.
Yeah.
That's what my
Thank you.
flowery language covered. Any other questions? Hearing none, George, take the roll.
Hang on one second. All right, so Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kapinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes?
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sui.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any other comments? I brought my announcement for the greet and treat, but somebody stole my thunder, and I've already forgotten. When is Election Day?
November 2nd.
So please remember to go vote. I truly believe, and I think we all believe, an informed voter is a good voter, and a good voter is an informed voter. So get informed and then go vote. And the only other I have is if you don't call your mother on Saturday, she will call you during a board meeting at least 3 times. So that's my notice to any other sons out there who haven't called their mother. Last on our agenda is meeting notification. A regular Board of Education meeting work session will be held Thursday, November 4th in this room, and a regular Board of Education meeting will be held November 18th, 7 p.m. in this room. We do have need for executive session on the topics of
To consider the employment of a public employee and to review negotiations with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
any other topics? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kapinski. Any discussion? Would you take the roll?
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kapinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes?
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sui.
Yes.
The motion carries. We will enter into executive session at 8:20. We have no expectation of further business. Thank you for your attention, and please remember to vote on November 2nd.